In this lesson, we're going to create panels. Now, panels are a very useful element in Bootstrap that allows you to separate content into small little widgets that once it's in the panel, it's very easy to move that content around. Now, in the template that I've given you, there are examples of panels. Okay, for example, this right here, the content right here is in a panel. The panel does not have much styling to it, but it is in a panel. And the price table or the pricing table that you see here, each individual package or plan, this is also in a panel. Now, panels are used sometimes in the main website or in the sales page of your website, but in applications you see panels a lot. So this is a user interface that I've designed using Bootstrap, and this is for our web application Link Tracker, which is an ad tracking platform at linktracker.com. Here you can see panels. Panels are everywhere over here. Okay, so the reason we put all this content into panels is that it will be very easy to copy the entire panel, put it somewhere, or in the actual application you can make these panels movable, so the user can just click on this panel and drag it somewhere else. Okay, so now let's start creating panels in Bootstrap. Let's go to Coda and click on your course materials over here. Click on your project, and now let's start with blank. And I'm going to save this blank, save as, I'm going to save it as panels. Okay, and we need the basic grid structure to start with, so I am going to go to snippets. I'm going to open up grid, and I'm going to copy the entire thing over here, and I'm going to come back to panels. Well, let me make the text larger. Okay, I'm going to open a preview window at the bottom so that we can see what we're working with instantly. And now I want to get rid of this blank slate, of course, so I'm going to delete this entire thing and paste the basic structure to create a row and to create 12 columns. Okay, so 12 columns are a bit too large to work with, so I'm going to change this to 4. And now let's get rid of hello world. So inside this column, we are going to create a panel. So let's start with creating the basic panel. I'm going to type div class panel. Okay. Alright, and let's close that tag over here. So we have created a panel, and let's add some content. Okay, so you probably can't see much over here. So with panels in Bootstrap, there are a few styling options that you can apply the panel to. Now let me just use one of the basic options, which is panel default. Okay, so this is the default panel, and now you can see a border, and that is much easier to work with. Let me just enter a paragraph tag over here to make it easier for you to see the panel. Alright, so now it's much easier to see. So what's the problem with this panel? The text is too close to the edge, and this is why in Bootstrap you have to create the panel body div tag. So I'm going to div class panel body. Okay, and I'm going to close that div. So now you can see the content is very nicely placed inside the panel. There's some padding all over the panel, and all the content of the panel should go inside panel dash body. Okay, so now let's create a heading for that panel, and we will collapse the panel body to make it easier to work with. You can just you can right click or double tap and click on fold current block, or you can also click here at the correct line number. So this is line 62. I'm going to click on line 62, and that will collapse this tag. Now let's create the heading. div class panel heading. Okay, that's the one, and let's close that tag. Okay, so the panel heading appears not inside the panel body, it appears or you should put it before the div panel body. Alright, and now let's add a title. Okay, so you see the panel title over here. But in Bootstrap, there's an additional class that you can apply to title to make it look just a little bit better for the title. You can of course just bold this text if you want to, and it works well, but let me just go through the example here, and let me create another div for div title. Okay, so I'm going to create div class panel title. That's the one we're looking for. Let's close that tag, and let's close div title. So now you have a panel with the panel title and panel body. So next step is to add a panel footer. But first, let's collapse panel heading to make the code a little bit easier to work with. So you see the main panel over here, and first thing is the panel heading, and inside panel heading there'll be a div class for panel title, then comes panel body, and now we're going to create the footer. That is div class panel footer. Okay, let's close that div, and let's add some content. Alright, so you have panel title, body, and footer. So how do you normally use this stuff? Okay, so for panel title, of course, it's the title of the panel. Let me make this a bit more realistic. Okay, so let me put the title here as latest news. Okay, now for the panel footer, you can put anything you want, but in most cases a button would go really well over here. A button or some kind of link or anything else that you want. Everything else you should probably put it inside the panel body area. Now let's talk about styling the panels. So without any kind of styling, the panel would look like this when it's just panel. Okay, this can be useful in some situations, but in most cases you would need to start off with at least panel default to make the panel just more visible and to make it look like an actual widget. Okay, now let's apply a different style to it, and in Bootstrap there are 4 classes that by the function of those classes. So just like buttons, you have button default, button info, button success, button warning, and button danger. So panels are basically named after the same classes as well. So default, and then now we have info. Okay, so what this does is it changes the panel heading color and the border. Panel footer colors, however, do not change at all no matter what class that you have applied. Now let's go to panel success. Okay, it's green. Panel warning, that's orange or yellow or whatever, and panel danger. Okay, so with all those classes, it depends how you want to use them. For example, for an announcement, you may want to use panel danger just so that it stands out a little bit more from all the other panels out there. Or you can apply this to an error class. So for example, if you put a form in here and the user did not fill up some of the fields in the form and try to submit it, then you can change the class to panel. That is a bit more advanced in terms of application. So for the default use, you can just determine what you want to use. Just stick to panel default if you're not sure. Now as for the content, you can create a paragraph tag. Okay, and you can put in paragraph, you can put list, in here. You can even put a form in here. Let's give that a shot and see what happens. Now I'm not going to create a form in this tutorial. I'm just going to copy a ready-made form, okay, or maybe a table. Okay, so I'm going to take this ready-made table over here, and I'm going to get back to panels. Okay, and now I'm going to delete everything inside panel body. Okay, I'm going to delete this content inside panel body, and I'm going to paste the table in here. Okay, now let's collapse the table. It's too much to, okay, collapse the table. All right, so this panel is obviously too small for this table, so let me change it to 8 columns. Okay, looks great. Now a very neat trick, if you want your table to occupy the entire panel body without any padding over here, then you can just remove the div class panel body. Let's do that and see what happens. I'm going to delete div class panel body, and now the table is full width. All right, so let's try that with some other type of content. Let's try that with a form. Yep, let's try that with a form. Okay, basic form. I'm going to go back to panels. I'm going to delete the table, and I'm going to put in a form. All right, so here you can see the form appears very nicely. In this case, we would want to maintain the panel body to give it a slight padding, and then you have your submit button here, and you can always move the submit button to the footer area, or you can even delete the footer. So that's all for this lesson on how to use panels in Bootstrap.